Good evening, community. What's up? How's it going? Answer now and quickly. Oh shit, that was the wrong song. Don't get me wrong, I love ISIS, the band, not the terrorist group. ISIS the band. They broke up in like 2009. So this is like ancient technology. This is like 14 years ago. ISIS the bad guys weren't even like on the radar for like mainstream America. Of course, ISIS the band wasn't either. But yeah, go ahead. Clip it. Make it a clip. Good evening. Welcome back to Save vs. Poison, the community dedicated to gaming, general geekery, and enduring sobriety in an ever-maddening society. My name is Will. I'm your host, as well as being your host. I'm also an alcoholic in recovery these 3 years, almost 4 months. Good game. Go team. Oh, how's Sunday treating you guys? Today was a mellow day. It was a mellow weekend for the most part. So my family got back into town. They were gone for a week. They're no longer gone for a week. They're now back for who knows how long. During that time, I had 2 solid cravings. We streamed at least 3 hours extra, which wasn't very much. Wasn't very much at all. I actually wanted to do more streaming, but unfortunately had just stuff to do and things to do and things to do. Man, would have been nice to have gotten a little bit more streaming and a little less spending time worrying about logistics and bullshit. Also, my dog was really needy that whole time. That poor, sweet animal was seriously struggling with the fact that he wasn't getting enough attention from the normally 4 humans in the house. Instead, just had the 1. So, my family's back, which is great. It's odd because when you're used to being part of something that's that consistently chaotic, the absence of that chaos is novel for about 20 minutes. Maybe an hour. And after that, you start thinking to yourself, man, where are all the noises? We were very lucky when we bought this house. It's a, in an area of Denver that, when we bought it more than a decade ago, was kind of up and coming, but not there yet. So we got a lot of house for the money. So it's kind of a bigger house. And like, if we tried to buy it now, there's no way we could afford it. Not a chance in hell. The fact that there was just nobody in the house, so quiet, so fucking quiet, and it was very, very strange. So no adult supervision, only had the 2 really, notable cravings, which is good. I'm really happy about that. Let's see. Luminos Forever's here. What's up, brother? Yeah, definitely clip it. Anthrax the band. Yeah. Anthrax the band. They knew what they were getting to. But if I said, hey, I'm a real big fan of ISIS, the band! I gotta really quickly, like, if I say I'm a fan of Anthrax, most people know that Anthrax is a heavy metal band. I think most people know. Or at least they can be like, wait, like, you're a fan of it chemically? Like the chemical Anthrax? It's like, no. I like the band. If I say I'm a fan of ISIS, people are thinking maybe this is one of those guys that's like about to ship it to the Middle East and be like, listen, I've converted to Islam and now I'm ready to do some choppings of heads. That's what I'm ready to do. Instead, I just really like progressive metal with a little bit of growl thrown in for contrast and good measure. That's it. That's the extent of it, right? That's the extent of it. Oi, Fresh as Fox. Chris says, productive, got some yard work done, cut down 3 trees today. Holy crap. Topped it off with installing a hummingbird feeder. Cute. Spring is in the air here in Washington State, then is hailed for over an hour straight today. Wow. That's a wacky thing to do. It snowed here today. That's because you live in the Northeast. It's supposed to snow. It's supposed to snow year round until it gets swampy. And then your balls are all like, they need powder. You need powder on your balls, John. That's what you need. Thinking of John, this mysteriously showed up in the mail. I don't know how this showed up in the mail. John, did you just send me this? Is that what happened? You saw that one video that I shared? You ready for my sweetness? Been a shit week, super angry and frustrated. I'm sorry to hear that, bro. Yes, humid summers in the Northeast. Love it. I'll give you this. You never look ashy. Like, you never have, like, every once in a while here in Colorado, I'll get, like really, really, really super dry skin where I, like, do this, and it looks like it's snowing in the mountains. Like, if I squint kind of hard, and I do this, and I have, like, the mountains as my backdrop, I think it's snowing. Yeah. Of course, the snow goes up and then it falls down, so it's a little bit weird. I have to make like a science fiction story up in my head about the whole thing. But yeah, a little bit weird. So, weird kind of weekend, or no, good kind of weekend. Yesterday, my wife finally unpacked a birthday gift that I gave her 2 years ago. I don't know what I have to do to like try to pamper this woman, but my wife loves to travel. It's her favorite thing on earth. So I bought her a map that is it's a relief map. So it's basically wooden panels all shaped like the different countries, and you place it up on a wall without any kind of a template. You just place it up on the wall, and it's got pinholes in it so you can pin everywhere that you've been. Well, she finally put it together yesterday with my oldest son's help. And then with my help as well, like the three of us did it all together, and just, tons and tons of double-sided tape and trying to get this thing up on the wall. And it looks great. I'm really, really happy with it. But it took a while to get to that place. So that's basically been my weekend. I worked out a couple times. I had some work to do on Friday before we got to the stream, and then trying really hard to start engaging in social media a little bit more purposefully than I have in the past. So, trying to get the Instagram stuff going, trying to get the Twitter stuff going, trying to really, make an effort to try to get the message out there. Because the more eyes that we have on this, the more people can possibly find, some help, some ideas about where they can go for the support that they need, either addicts or not addicts, or maybe you just like laughing at my idiot ass and my two idiot ass friends when we play Hunt on Friday night. I watched the VOD for that a little bit, and we are fucking morons. We're really bad at that game, and we're really, really stupid at the same time, and it was a real blast to watch, and I giggled quite a bit how idiotic the three of us all sound. So yeah, Chris says tomorrow's the start of a new week. Hope it's better than this one for you. Yeah, Tweezer says schedule says otherwise. So a little bit doomering. Can you just say no and take mental health week instead? Nope. Tweezers, I think, did that a couple months ago, like back in January, I think. Is that when you took your like month-long sabbatical? That was a little while ago. Well, brother, I hope that you can find a little peace and calm. I hope you can have a little eye of the storm moment. So, sobriety check-in. I had a weird craving. I had a really strange craving yesterday. So I was driving around doing grocery store shopping, and I passed a liquor store. Liquor stores in Colorado are like gas stations. They're like everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. You'll see one, and then 2 doors later, there's another one. I don't know how these places fucking stay afloat, other than to like cynically think everybody's just a fucking addict and they're not coping with it very well. I mean, the numbers don't belie that. 140,000 people in the United States every year die from alcohol and alcoholism-related complications. That's not a good number. That's so many fucking people. If you've watched the intro video for the YouTube channel, you have seen exactly how you can, mentally picture that number. Just think of a full football stadium. Every year, that group dies. They're gone. No more. Off the face of the earth. And that's all because they just can't say no to the booze. At least not with the kind of consistency that's going to save their lives. So, I'm driving back home from the grocery store, and I see a liquor store, and I get clued into a memory from years ago, before I was on kind of the downward end of my spiral into alcoholism. I loved going to different liquor stores, new liquor stores, and basically going on a treasure hunt for like new and unique whiskeys. Like, I loved whiskey when I was in my like late 20s, early 30s. By the time I was in my late 30s, it didn't matter anymore. I just wanted the substance. I needed the substance. That's what I craved. Didn't matter what the value of it was. Like, I remember going through a $100 bottle of whiskey that was gifted to me in the exact same amount of time that it would take me to finish a cheap bottle of Jack. Like, I didn't savor it. I didn't enjoy it. I like remember taking a swig of it and thinking, this is tasty. Also, this is gonna get me there. Da-na-na-na-na. So, moving through the earlier parts of my addiction, when I still had kind of this romanticized idea of how I could engage with alcohol, and seeing that every single liquor store was a new place that I could try to find a new bottle. Like, I'd be on the lookout for, Japanese whiskeys. I'd be on the lookout for Blanton's all the time, like different bourbons that my brother would send me links to and say, hey, these are like up and coming bourbons. Check these out. There's so much alcohol that's being crafted in such a specifically artisanal way. Vodkas, rums, cognacs, like all this shit. I thought that was the way that I was going to keep myself from being, kind of a piece of shit. I thought I was going to go bougie. And if I went bougie, I couldn't be lower class, man. Couldn't do it. Wasn't going to happen. God, I love whiskey. Me too, man. Me too. Man or lady, I don't know. Me too, first time chatter. There, that's gender neutral. Ha ha, got it. Last $5. Nice. That's a solid guilt trip. Thanks for the 13 months of subbing, man. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the shit out of it. We're playing Diablo 4 tonight, and I think my son's gonna join me tonight. So yeah, absolutely. So I loved finding craft bottles of whiskey. Loved it. Loved finding craft bottles of whiskey. I would collect them and then bring them home. And then stay above the fridge, because it wasn't like I was making a ton of money. So if I had like 3 or 4 different bottles, I'd like have like a tasting night, or I'd like have a couple friends over and we'd each have like some from this and some from this. And then I'd very bougie talk about how this whiskey comes from this area of Kentucky, and this one comes from this area of Scotland, and this one comes from this area of Ireland, and this one comes, and this one is from this well in Japan, and blah 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 blah. Bougie. It was all really kind of fucking pretentious. It was a whole heck of a lot of pretension. It was me trying to figure out a way to make something that I knew that I was starting to have an issue with into a portion of my personality that would make it seem like I was engaging with it in a healthy, interesting, more hobbyistic way. So yeah, kind of off, right? Kind of off. So yeah. Let's see. Grizzly says, but it didn't love me. God, I love whiskey, but it didn't love me. I understand. That's a one-way love affair until you realize that love affair is you abusing yourself. Yeah. Definitely bought a bunch of alcohol once to stock a liquor cabinet because I wanted to be fancy. That didn't go well. Yep. Like, I have a friend of mine. I haven't checked in on them in about a year. But they have an extensive whiskey collection. Like hundreds of bottles. They don't have kids whatsoever. So it's him and his wife. They don't have kids. Looking at their whiskey collection, when they put up like pictures of it, I'm awed, because who's got the fucking time and the money to put that up together? I'll tell you who it does. People without kids. 2, I can't imagine going to their home and seeing that and not feeling like a little bit triggered. Not a lot, but a little bit triggered, right? Just a little bit. Yeah. That would be rough. That would be rough. Grizzly says, I woke up in Paris after drinking 2 bottles on a night out in London. Blacked out the whole Eurostar journey. Jesus. 2 bottles on a night out in London. And you woke up, you went through the channel. I feel like that's a metaphor. That's a metaphor for for what happened. Listen, I got chunneled. I got fucking chunneled. If you said that to me, I think I'd understand what you were inferring. I think I'd get it. I think I'd be 100% there, man. Yeah, absolutely. Fucking chunneled. I like that. I think I'm that might be a thing that we talk about here on the channel from now on. We got chunneled on the channel. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. So, anyways, yeah. So I had a longing for that moment. That idea of going from liquor store to liquor store to liquor store, trying to find unique and interesting whiskeys. I had a longing for that moment. I didn't have a longing or a craving for alcohol. I just missed one of the activities. It's like when I say that I missed brewing beer. I miss brewing beer. I love brewing beer. I fucking loved brewing beer. One of my love languages, one of the ways that I show you that I care about you, is I cook for you. Well, since drinking was a big part of my culture, the culture that I had with my friends, with some of my family members, making you beer, making something like that held a deep emotional resonance for me that I wanted to share with other people. I did it for several years, like 3 or 4 years. I turned out some really good stuff. I turned out some really shitty stuff. I turned out mostly some middle-of-the-road stuff. Like I had a vanilla porter that was unbelievable, absolutely delicious, perfectly smooth, tasted like, really amazing coffee with, the vanilla and the dark maltiness. I wanted to learn how to lager, which is it's a bottom fermenting way of making beer. I wanted to learn how to do that. I was interested in the craft of it more than just being interested in the consumption of the product, right? Unfortunately, by the time I was in my late 30s, there was just no way that I was going to be able to keep up with any of that stuff. So it eventually turned into me not even caring to brew anymore because I just wanted to feel drunk. I just wanted my substance. That was what I wanted. That was it. That was the important part to me. So yeah, I miss some of the hobby aspects of it very much. Luckily, I have some other things that I can, move my hobby radar onto. I mean, the collection of miniatures, the playing of video games, collection of video games and playing of video games. All of these things tend to suffice in scratching that same itch. And that's something that's really, really important, I think, is trying to find things that help to scratch the itch of the periphery of our journeys through substance way back when. Like, if you liked going dancing, but you liked going dancing on coke, if you had a problem with coke, you should probably not do the coke. But finding healthy ways to go dancing, that could be important to your recovery. That could be something that allows you to say, listen, this is something I love. I need to get away from the coke part of it, but this is something that fulfills another need inside of me. So maybe instead of going to the rave and dropping some E, maybe instead, if you've got a partner, you learn how to salsa dance with them. You incorporate them into the way that you want to enjoy a hobby. This does a couple things. One, you get to engage in your hobby. Two, you get to engage in your hobby with somebody that you care about, hopefully. I don't know a lot of people that don't like to go dancing that aren't dudes. Don't know a lot of them. I don't know. Could be me. Could just be me. I don't know. I'm supposed to take my wife learning to do salsa dancing sometime in the near future. So yeah. When I stopped, I took up sailing. It is great being at sea and connecting with the rawness of nature. I can understand that feeling. Not empathy. I understand that feeling. When I was a young teenager, I had a friend whose father owned a sailboat. He was a colonel in the army, so he didn't have to pay for like his billeting or anything, his housing or anything. So he had, enough money that he could do something like throw money into a boat. So he had a 50-foot, I think, schooner. It was a 2-sail. I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, I was 12, 13 at the time, but it was fascinating and exhilarating to be out on the bay in San Francisco. It was very, very interesting. So I think I can understand how you feel about sailing. It is great being at sea and connecting with the rawness of nature. I would agree with that, man. I would agree with that 100%, man. 100%. So, we're gonna bring in Illuminos Forever, and he and I'm gonna ask him some questions. I'm gonna ask him some fucking questions. So, Illuminos, if you are listening, and I hope you are, if you can hop into the Discord server, I will link it right there in the chat. You can click that, come on in. Go ahead and hop into the stream channel. There he is. Ooh. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. Welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So, why don't you start off? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me how long you've been sober.
Yeah, so this is going to get right to an interesting thing right at the beginning.
Sure.
Because we talk about sobriety. I would not consider myself sober.
Okay.
And I have a lot of, what do you want to say? A lot of emotional energy around the terminology of soberness.
Okay.
I would say that I stopped using alcohol as my drug of choice.
Okay.
Probably back in, 2019. That's
okay.
probably when that stopped being that way. But I still am a regular user of alcohol and cannabis.
Okay.
And cannabis became like my more like go-to, like if you want to call it drug of choice.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, like definitely I would never claim to be dry.
Okay.
But I would not say that I am a like daily user of alcohol the way that I was, for years before 2019. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would not call myself sober.
Okay, cool. Oh, thank you very much for the clarification.
Sure.
So you would say that you had a problematic relationship with alcohol until sometime in 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was it that brought you to the understanding that you were dealing with a negative outcome from your engagement with alcohol?
Yeah, I think I knew I had a problem for a very long time. I was in and out of AA for a while, and tried a lot of different other types of methods to try and mediate my alcohol consumption. So as far as like how, I think I knew I had a problem for a long time. Like I actually remember, so my family has a history of substance issues, and like so many alcoholics do, right? And I remember the first time that I started drinking regularly was when I went to Europe when I was 19. And I remember thinking then that like, oh, I need to be careful with this. I need to like, I shouldn't be like alone when I'm drinking. I shouldn't like have a bottle to my own. So yeah, like, and I'm like 33 now. So you're talking like, 14 years ago. So yeah, I think I knew I had a problem for a long time. I think when it became really apparent to me that I had a problem, I was still in college.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like, borrowing money from people, to get drunk on the weekends, that kind of thing.
Did you ever get that money back?
Sometimes. Yeah, my friends were, I don't know. I think back then I believed that they were chill, and now I think that they were kind of just too scared to address the situation. So
Gotcha. That's rough.
Yeah, so I think like, and that and then when I got out of college, that's when like, I think ironically my periods of like heaviest abuse were like right after college and then right before I stopped drinking.
Sure.
Probably in 2018. 2019, that kind of period. So all throughout that period between being like 23 and fresh out of college and like trying to make sense of the world and like being like 30 years old and like being like I can't do this anymore, there was some version of me trying to mitigate my alcohol consumption for that like 8-year period.
That entire period. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. I literally had a conversation with my wife one night in bed after I had been drunk the previous day, and I was like I needed her to tell me to stop drinking. Now this was years before I made the final like hard stop.
Yeah.
But this was a moment where I was like, listen, I need you to ask me to stop drinking, because I think that if you ask me to stop drinking, it will give me the impetus to be able to you know, give it a really good,
Right.
you know, quit. But of course, in my head, I'm doing this almost performatively. So I think
Yeah.
I have a feeling about what you're talking about.
Yeah, and what you just said reminds me a lot of the idea of like, you know, you're not going to do it for yourself,
Yeah.
but you would consider doing it for somebody else. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you hope that it will be a powerful motivator, but it sounds like for you at least it was yeah, that wasn't the motivator you hoped it would end up being, or it took you longer to get there.
Yeah, I was hoping that it would be like the motivator that would kick me into a place where I understood heart and head that I had an issue. I knew in my head that I had an issue, but you know, the ego does so much work to protect the self that
Yep.
when I really, really looked at how I felt, I still considered myself able to, like, it was almost like asking my wife to ask me to stop was me signaling to her, hey, I'm going to try, and signaling to myself, if I can try for like 3 months or something, or 5 months or whatever it is that I arbitrarily, you know, come up with in my head and eventually can like get back on it, then that will show not only the world, but myself that I am in control. And of course, that's not how that worked. So yeah.
Yep. Yep. Like I relate to that a lot. Yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. Yay. So okay, I'm sorry I interjected a little bit to you know, try to empathize. Did you have more to the end of that story?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, there's so much to that story, right? Of like, you
Sure.
know, trying to come to terms with the fact that you have a problem, trying to understand what the routes out of it are. And I certainly, like, you know, tried a lot of different routes.
Mhm.
You know, doesn't have to be today, but there's a lot of that stuff I would be interested on your perspective on, as far as like I said, I have an issue with the term sobriety. I honestly have an issue with the term alcoholic. It's
Sure.
one of the reasons that I resisted treatment for so long, is this identity that I imposed on myself, that like basically I can't, you know, I'm bad with alcohol, and that, you know, that identity was hard for me, especially because to me it felt like, yeah, another label, another self-judgment of like, this is a thing that I'm bad at, and I have to continue acknowledging that I'm bad at this thing to
Sure.
heal.
Sure.
Which works obviously for a lot of people. It seemed like it worked for you, but I have so many other issues with like shame and guilt, that constant focus on where I was insufficient was something I struggled with for a long time. But yeah, I was obviously unable to um, control my drinking once I started. Very difficult to, you know, when I have a lot of stress and anxiety, always going back to that drug of choice. You know, I remember having cravings of just like, you know, I would just drive around in my car, because I
Mhm.
knew if I sat in my apartment too long thinking about how much I shouldn't be drinking right now, I would eventually start drinking.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then I just spent a lot of time, you know, looking into how different people treat alcohol and different ways of addressing it.
Mhm.
Um, and eventually, that's what led me to what I think we're going to talk about, which is like naltrexone and the Sinclair method.
Yeah.
And you know, I think I just got lucky that it worked so well for me, because I would very much love to say that my management of the substance is like something I did, something that you know, I powered through, or I came to some kind of enlightenment. But I just really found that treatment incredibly helpful.
Mhm.
There was a whole journey of trying to get prescribed naltrexone. That was like yeah, trying to find someone that would do that, and
That's
like
so fascinating to me.
I end up getting into one of my best therapeutic relationships actually started because I went to a drug and alcohol center specifically because was told that they prescribe naltrexone,
Mhm.
and instead come to find out that they only administer it.
Okay.
So
Huh.
I couldn't do anything there. I had to go somewhere else, but I ended up getting a really good therapist out of it. So it wasn't a loss. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was its own journey to act. Once I thought that this might be a solution, trying to find how I could get it prescribed, and then yeah, trying to yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. So
Gotcha. Okay. So, why don't you describe what the Sinclair method is?
sure. And I'm probably going to butcher it, but
That's
in
okay.
its
That's all right.
in its most simple form, the Sinclair method involves you taking this drug, naltrexone. There might be other drugs that do the same kind of thing, but it blocks the one of the opioid receptors in your brain. And some people seem to have a particular opioid response when they drink alcohol, that they get this kind of high when they first start drinking. And that high can be its own kind of draw to continue drinking. Um, and the idea is that if you take away the link that, part of the, cause for abuse is that your brain is looking for the shortest path to find relief. And alcohol is an incredibly potent way to find relief from, especially anxiety. So the idea of the Sinclair method is that you're going to take naltrexone so that you don't have this opioid response. You're going to then consume alcohol, and you're basically going to untrain your brain that the alcohol makes you feel good. That is like the dumbest way that I can explain how that method works.
I think that that's a perfectly serviceable way to explain it, and from everything that I've seen, that's how it is usually explained to lay people.
Yeah.
So much, like I found it so interesting. So you and I, December 19th of 2019, or December 15th of 2019 was my date of that was the last time that I drank.
Mm-hmm.
So we're both in that 2019, 3 years ish from problematic drinking. So we'll just put it there. So you say you're not sober in the classic definition. Cool, no problem. But for the both of us, about 3 years, right? They threw naltrexone at me, and they didn't explain that the Sinclair method was a possibility. I was told that it was to help with physical cravings.
Yeah,
which
and that's
I
the
thought
part
was very
that
interesting.
That's the part that I think, in my experience of trying to get it. So I'm interested, who was throwing it at you? Were you at a drug and alcohol center? Were you talking to your general practitioner?
No. So I was a Kaiser patient at the time, and Kaiser's model for behavioral health therapeutics, which addiction falls underneath, was first contact with a primary care, then off to a almost caseworker, I would say would be the appropriate term for me to throw out there. Like, they're licensed addiction counselors, but it almost felt like I was being like caseworked. Then off to a intense outpatient there. You had regular therapy, intense outpatient therapy, or an inpatient therapy center. My wife, who was by my side the entire time, because at this point in time I was just like, listen, I'm giving up all pretense at privacy. I obviously need help. I've obviously done a ton of damage to my relationship with my wife. She needs to be here for every single part of this if I'm ever going to be able to win back any of the trust that I have worked so incredibly tirelessly to lose over the last several years. So she was with me the entire time. We decided that I was going to do intense outpatient therapy. And when I say we decided, the guy literally said, which one of the three do you want to do? I looked at her and I said, what do you want me to do? And she said, you're going with the intense outpatient therapy. We need you to be amongst the family. That's kind of where we need you to be right now. And I was like, okay, sounds great. We'll do that. So I went to intense outpatient therapy. Part of the intense outpatient therapy was not only dealing with stuff in group, but also having contact with a physician who specializes in behavioral health. Drifter Thrifter over on YouTube. How's it going, man? How's it going? We're in the middle of a conversation about the Sinclair method of cessation of problematic drinking. I'm with friend of the show, community member, Illuminos Forever. What's up? Yeah. So yeah, that was my experience with naltrexone being thrown at me. When I started talking to her, she was like, listen, I'm going to put you on gabapentin. That's going to help you with sleep, because right now sleep is so important in early recovery. And I'm going to put you on naltrexone. Both of those working in tandem with each other are going to help you mitigate physical cravings. There was never any conversation about the Sinclair method. Zero.
Yeah.
The first time that I heard about it was on a YouTube TED Talk that we covered here on the show a couple of weeks ago, done by actress Claudia Christian. Like, that's it. That's all I'd ever heard of it.
Yeah, I'm incredibly jealous of your rather holistic treatment that you got. You got like you got the pharmaceutical, you got the group therapy, you got the individual caseworker. Yeah, you got the whole package. And that, I mean, I wish so much more of mental health was treated that way, in that kind of holistic kind of approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, my experience with, so after I identified that, one, I do find it interesting that people understand that naltrexone is a powerful drug that can help satiate cravings, and yet no one either seems to know about the Sinclair method, or no one seems to believe in it. And that there's and I actually think that the guy passed away that came up with the Sinclair method. And he actually talks about that, about how like basically that he did all this research and that it improved a bunch of people's lives, and then no one seemed to be interested in it. That's obviously someone's own self-interested statement, but it is odd to me. And my experience of getting naltrexone was that I had to go to a different like basically outpatient facility that actually could do an evaluation to prescribe naltrexone. And they wanted to do it, I think a much more traditional route, which is instead of giving someone, because I took like tablet naltrexone. Because the idea with the Sinclair method is you take it once, and then after about half an hour, the effect, is lessened, and then you can consume the alcohol. They wanted to give me a potent shot under my skin, where it would, it's basically like a 30-day dose that like slowly, and it's like, that freaks me out. I have no desire to do that.
Sure.
So I had to like fight with them a little bit to like actually get pill form naltrexone.
Man,
but
I don't know how I feel about that. That's weird. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I can understand, once again, naltrexone is usually prescribed for people with opioid addiction. So to me, it makes a ton of sense in that context. Like, this person, if they relapse, is going to kill themselves, or it's very likely that they could have a really deadly relapse if they go back on opiates. And so, like, yeah, you need this basically to be in their system at all times, so that even if they like fall off the wagon, they're not going to die. So for that kind of application, that makes a little more sense to me. But obviously, even those people didn't know about the Sinclair method when they prescribed it to me. So I can understand why it was weird. And, I can also understand that, like, if you're giving an addict like a on-demand pill, like, what if the addict just doesn't take it? Like, how effective is the medication going to be?
It's only as effective as the person that's willing to use it, right?
Yep, exactly. So anyways, I was fortunate that the guy was pretty flexible, so I ended up getting my 30 tablets instead of that shot. And then I only, at that point, I actually went out to dinner with my sister and was like, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go out and I'm going to order a beer and I'm going to try this thing, but I want you to be there in case it doesn't work. I want like someone to be there in case it does, maybe this feeling doesn't happen, and then I just, or maybe I don't have that feeling anymore, but then I decide to get drunk anyways. Like, I wanted some kind of like protection, a backup, situation. But I remember it was like a light switch, man. Like that first drink of like being on the naltrexone. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been away from like sugar for a long time and then you go back to soda, but you start like this idea of like, oh, this is like really nasty. Like, this very concentrated sugar water. That's the exact feeling I had with the beer, which is like, oh, I don't really like IPAs. I just like the way that IPAs make me feel. Like, that bitter taste literally means like, oh, I'm going to be knocked out soon.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. That's what that taste means. And so when those things became disconnected, I fundamentally changed. The cravings didn't go away, but they were, the nature of them changed substantially. There was only one other time after that, and it kind of shows my addict brain, right, where I was like, oh, well, that was beer. I'm gonna get some whiskey and we'll see if it worked with whiskey. And it did. Thank goodness. But yeah, and then after that, like I said, the cravings didn't go away, and the larger thing that I've had to deal with in the last, I guess, 4 years now,
Mhm.
is all the other stuff, all of the other, like, well, why do you drink all the time?
Right, right.
And some of that is just because you get stuck into a negative feedback loop because it does have its own cravings, but most of it is because your life is unstable and you're looking for a sense of control.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, and then we went on from there. So however you want to take that conversation, but that's
I mean,
I wish it was more complicated than that. I wish that it, or not wish, but like, I wish it was a better story. But literally, it was like I had this thing happen, and it fundamentally changed my relationship with a substance that was like destroying my life. I think I think whatever there is in the universe that's good, that happened that way.
well,
So,
I have so many.
yeah.
So one, I was really glad. Like you came in at literally perfect timing. I think you popped into chat like like a week after I did the podcast episode and the Twitch stream on the Sinclair method. Like we watched Claudia Christian's TED Talk on here. It actually got like it got copyright flagged over on YouTube, which I thought was kind of funny.
Really?
Like it didn't get flagged over here on Twitch, but it did over on YouTube, which was like,
Yeah.
what the, like I'm doing commentary on this. How is this getting copyright flagged? Like, where's fair use? What the buckets? So you showing up when you did, I was like, wait, am I being trolled? I feel like this is like the perfect time for somebody to come out of the woods and be like, listen, have you ever talked about the Sinclair method? Motherfucker, this was a week ago that I talked about the Sinclair method.
I'm
like,
what's it called? I'm a naltrexone psyop.
Yeah,
I've been sent by the pharmaceutical companies.
Seriously,
to,
100%. And if you've listened to the podcast, I'm a big fan of psyops. We have one host whose entire purpose is to psyop me. That's his whole thing. That's all he does. All the time. I love it. Drifter Thrifter over on YouTube says, just don't go through every alcohol testing them.
Yeah, exactly.
I would tend to agree with that. So when my initial thoughts when I was watching the TED Talk was I don't like the idea of having to re-engage with alcohol, even with a substance that's supposedly going to block the effects of it. I didn't like that. I had a very visceral, very visceral, my addict wants me to do that sensation. So, when I saw her talking about it, I was like, wait, is this a way that I can go back to, getting plowed? Like,
right.
Kinda? Is it? Maybe? And because I had that reaction, that gut reaction, my head immediately said, this sounds like absolute bunk. This sounds like magic pill bullshit. And anytime, I'm old enough now to realize that there are no insta-cures. There are no ways of getting around hard work when hard work is what's required. And everything that I've ever seen about being in recovery has focused on, you got to do the work. You got to put the work in. You got to put the work in. Like lots and lots of talk about work, right?
Yep.
What you talked about just a minute ago with this got me able to deal with the physicality of my maladjusted use of alcohol without ever addressing potential underlying reasons for why I would want to get plowed in the first place. And that was what I thought was really, really missing. Like when I took a step back away from my initial, reaction, all I could think was, well, I think that there are legitimate reasons to believe that self-soothing via substance abuse is a response to trauma. And if you're not doing anything for that underlying trauma, it's all well and good to engage in sort of the behavioral therapy that I think the Sinclair method is for a very, very laser-focused application without taking a look at the greater, totality of exactly how and why I really love the sensation of being drunk to the point that I am self-destructing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple thoughts from what you just said. One, obviously I can only go from my experience. I don't know, and I don't even know if this is the question you're asking, but I guess I'll just say it. What I thought of when you made that comment was, I don't know if I would ever tell someone that already achieved some period of extended sobriety that they should, like, hey, you're still having cravings, maybe try the Sinclair method.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, you've already you've there's so many triggers there about even just being around alcohol. I would never, one, I'm not a medical person, so I'm not going to tell you to do anything. But two, it's like that's such a like a sacred, personal, precious thing that you've accomplished. I would also be like terrified of anything that could undermine that.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking as someone that was in the depths of like, hey, I would, like, at best, I would, drink, I would buy a handle for the weekend, and black out most nights on the weekend, Friday through Sunday. And then hopefully there was just like one day during the week where my cravings were bad enough that I like ended up drinking again. And that was like my basic cycle of like trying to be sober, and like, but always feeling that pull, like bringing me back. To me, it was a way to give me a head start. It was a way to take the, like, ironically, in the same way that alcohol takes the edge off, this was like taking the edge off the cravings. They were still there. I like all of the emotional prompting was still there, that like, oh, I need something to fix how I'm feeling right now. None of that stuff changed. And in fact, that's one of the most debilitating parts. And I haven't heard your full story, so I don't know if you experienced this. One of the like truly saddest parts of getting quote unquote sober for me was realizing that like some things got worse. That like, especially with my depression, I wasn't like constantly lethargic and like tired the way that I was when I was hungover all the time. But now I didn't have this easy remedy. Now I didn't have this easy thing to soothe me. So yeah, man, like, yes, everything to what you're saying about that it's not a magic pill. There's so much more work that needs to be done with anybody that goes through that kind of dependence, and work that honestly I'm still in some way going through now. So yeah, it is none of the, it is by no means the panacea. It's by no means the magic pill. I just fundamentally believe that I was going down a path of like full on self-destruction. And that I am glad that I got the breather to work on those things to not be so self-destructive.
Well,
that's
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we think of it in terms of triaging. Like early on in my recovery, the very first physician that I talked to was just a primary care physician, and there were a lot of questions about, okay, so you are admitting to alcoholism. I said, yes, I have a problem with drinking. Do you have a problem with depression, with suicidal ideation? Do you have a problem with any of these other psychological things? And of course, I'm at the worst part of my entire life. I feel like the fact that my wife is sitting next to me does nothing to comfort me. All I can think is, she's gonna fucking bail any minute now. She's gonna realize how deep this is and fucking bail. And I basically unload. I try to be as perfectly honest as I possibly can. I have a deep moment of ego death, and the physician starts writing down, okay, so you have a possibility of all of these things. Well, the very first thing that we need to work on is your abusive relationship with alcohol. That's what we need to work on first. All of this other stuff, we don't know if that is downstream or causal, but we do know that with the cessation of drinking, some of these things will become clearer, and we'll be able to start working with you in being able to diagnose and treat any other mental health issues that you have. So the very first thing is the cessation of alcohol. That's what we got to work on first. I think that the Sinclair method, working the way that you are describing it to me, could be literally that moment that is life-saving enough so that we can take a look at the aggregate of a human being and say, listen, these are where you have issues. These are what we can work on. This has got to be worked on absolutely first, because it is exacerbating all of these other issues that you've got going on. So I think, I would be personally hesitant to make any changes to the way that I currently engage in my recovery.
Yeah.
It's working. I had the biggest problem that I have 3+ years in is worrying that because some weeks are really, really easy, that my guard is being lowered. But every single week I'm doing multiple Twitch streams, which are all part of my sobriety, doing the, getting to the gym, which I've linked to my sobriety, doing the podcast where I talk about sobriety related things with at least one other alcoholic who also suffers from bipolar disorder, and one of my good friends. So it's like I have layer upon layer upon layer of talking about it, reinforcing the my accountability with people that I care about and that I know are willing to call me on my bullshit if my bullshit needs to be called. So this is not something that I would necessarily take onto myself, because it really, like you said, it does feel as if any kind of a change potentially risks upsetting the apple cart. And right now, the apple cart is moving from town to town, and it's doing it pretty fucking smoothly. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I appreciate that you said that. One of the things that we talk about a lot here is everybody has their own garden to tend. We like to share manure across fences, but your garden is your garden. And if you tend it and it is, well maintained, it doesn't really matter. I don't care if you have to anything up to sacrificing babies, and I'm basically okay with what keeps you sober.
Sure.
This was one of those things where I just looked at it and was like, ooh, I don't know enough about this. Let's go on a journey. Let's go on a journey of discovery. So really quickly, I'm going to read some chats. Drifter Thrifter, I lived overseas with a girlfriend for a year, and her dad was both an alcoholic and rich. So guy had a full bar in the basement with beers on tap. After the first month, having it always available, I no longer wanted it. So I keep a big supply of alcohol at home and rarely drink. It's right there. Yawn. It's no longer a thrill. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. We got rid of everything except for mouthwash and cooking wines. That was like, I showed my wife where all of my stashes were. We went through the entire house. I was like, this is where I would stash empties until it was trash day. This is where I would stash bottles. Like, I had a ritual of going to the liquor store, getting a 12er of beer and then a bottle, and by the time I was home, that bottle was about a quarter of the way done already. Now, I live like 4 minutes from the local liquor store. Like I said, in Colorado, liquor stores are ubiquitous. They're like Starbucks in Seattle. And then I would grab a beer, open the beer, take a swig out of the beer as I was walking into the house. So if my wife said, I smell alcohol on your breath, I just point to the beer and be like, nope, gaslighting you. Ha-ha, gotcha. And then I would store the hard liquor in the freezer out in the garage, and then every once in a while just disappear out there, go get another beer, take a swig out of the bottle, and then come back in with another fresh beer. Aren't I clever? Aren't I so clever? Aren't I a gaslighter? Yes, I was. So, yeah, man. Fuck, I can't tell you.
Don't miss hiding bottles. That was definitely always a part of the routine.
Yep,
for sure.
Yep, and it was like I don't know. There were points in time where I thought that I was being ridiculously clever when I was hiding bottles, and then knowing that I was gonna have to lie if I ever got caught always gave me, massive anxiety. Dark, unpleasant, deeply unpleasant. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
unless you have a particular direction that you wanted to take this, I think the only thing I wanted to mention, and it's I guess it's my own, insecurity and thought, is that I do wonder if I had gone the full sobriety route, if I would be farther along in my journey, because I definitely shifted, after alcohol, it was cannabis, and I think that I have all sorts of opinions about cannabis is not perfect and can definitely have psychological dependency and all that kind of stuff. it's just vastly superior to alcohol in every way, as far as a drug of choice. And yeah, and that's been years of me going through that process too. So part of me wonders if I had just bitten the bullet and like committed to full sobriety, whether or not that was through AA or not, like if I would be farther along. So yeah, I think even in my particular quote unquote success story,
Mm-hmm.
you wonder how it would have played out differently. So
Okay.
yeah,
So I guess the following the question would be, where were you before you stopped drinking in terms of where you wanted to be, and where are you now in terms of where you want to be, and where do you think you would like to be in 2 or 3 years? Now, that last part, that's hard to codify. A lot of people have a hard time, sober, not sober, figuring out what they want to do in the next, couple of years. But knowing where you were and knowing where you are and knowing how far you have come and how far you would have liked to come, I think that that's something that can be answered. So where were you before you stopped drinking, and where are you now, and where would you have liked to have gotten to in the span of time that you feel like you might not have gotten to?
Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard for me because there are some pretty measurable ways in which my life has improved in these last 4 years. But I've also had like a lot of unique challenges outside of substances during that same period. So yeah, I'm like definitely not at the place that I want to be in life. And part of the journey for just my mental health in general has been like acknowledging that, like that I was using substances, especially alcohol, as like a numbing because I was so unsatisfied with my life because I didn't see a forward direction. That it should, hey, if life is not going to get better, I might as well be drunk.
Right.
That kind of idea. And the last 4 years probably has been like some version. I've been in therapy that whole time. I feel a lot more self-aware. I feel a lot more like coherent and integrated as a person because of all that work. But yeah, like materially, there's all sorts of other struggles that have persisted. So yeah, I'm not. It's interesting how you pose it that way. But I don't know if I have necessarily really good answers for those questions.
Okay.
So,
do you have a career?
one that I have a career, one that I'm currently very unsatisfied with. So
Okay.
yeah, the idea that having a career that you can rely on and grow in skill with, that's been a part of the journey that I've enjoyed. I've done a lot of different things in my field. But yeah, it is not the financial stability that I wish it was, and certainly not the emotional stability that I wish it was.
Okay.
So
How are your relationships with your closest loved ones and friends and family?
yeah, relatively small. And this is where I think, talking about like, so you got to think during those 4 years, like 2 of those were pandemic. So like
Sure.
all of my issues of like, when I drank, I isolated a lot.
Sure.
And that got better once I stopped drinking. And then things like the pandemic kind of doubled down on that.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty close relationship with my family. I have probably like 4 close friends. So those relationships are relatively solid, but those are kind of it. My life kind of got pretty small over the course of my 20s. So, and I've had a really hard time building it back up since then. So,
Gotcha. Are you seeing anyone?
I am not.
You're not. Okay.
Have not for many, many years.
Okay.
That is, of all of the things that, sorry, I'm just gonna. You asked the question, so I'm just gonna say it quick.
Dude, grow up.
Of all the things in my life, the things that I struggle with the most is like senses of security that goes along with like the financial like dissatisfaction. But then also, I'm morbidly obese. I've been obese for my entire life. And the alcohol definitely did not help with that at all. Everything from the binge eating that comes with alcohol to the actual just like calories and weight gain and all that stuff was terrible.
1,000 extra calories of booze, and then me dipping Fritos dips chips into ramen and then just fucking goblin moding on that shit. I'm not kidding. That literally happened. I want you to think about all those stringy ramen noodles, and not like good ramen. No. Top ramen. All right.
Yeah,
we're not,
right.
we're not going, we're not going to get delicious fucking ramen from the ramen shop on the corner. No. Using that shit like a dip. It was, yeah.
You got to save your money to buy more alcohol. So yeah.
You kind of did. Okay. Dude, seriously, your honesty is massively appreciated in this space.
Yeah, man.
So I feel you on the obesity. I, in the last 3 years, lost 100 pounds. And when I say that I tied my fitness to my sobriety, that was a very, very, very purposefully done linking.
Right.
I wanted to have a way to continue to improve the way that I physically felt, and I wanted the way that I physically felt to reinforce my decision to be sober. So that's why I went really kind of gung ho on the getting in shape thing. So I spent 2.5 decades being obese. So I understand.
Yeah.
Very much.
So yeah, I would say that's that has been like one of the biggest hurdles that it seems like. And I did I didn't lose 100 pounds, but I lost about 95 pounds.
Come on, man. That's like say, oh yeah. I ran a 100 meter dash in 12 or whatever the
right.
40 seconds. Oh well, I only ran in 43 seconds. Fuck you. You ran
all
the
that
100 meter dash.
All that I can tell you is that it was very significant to me that I didn't get to that 3-digit number. And
that I can recognize, that I understand,
and I'll just hey, I'm being very honest now. When you have several 100 pounds to lose, like 100 pounds is great. I'm always gonna take weight loss. But when that was like not even halfway through the journey, it was also like, and this is something that I do all the time, is that I refuse to acknowledge my accomplishments. And refuse to acknowledge the progress that I've made. So it was very hard to feel like you did something, but then it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I every single time somebody says congratulations on being sober, all I can think in the back of my head is thank you. I don't believe you, because to me, being sober means getting to 0 from -5. Like.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've accomplished something, because anybody else that can moderate, they're just normal. And what I want is to just be fucking normal.
Yeah.
So going from -5 to 0 feels like I'm running a race that like people are congratulating me on, but I'm not closer to winning first prize. And that mental block is so powerful in so many ways that it often can stop us before we'll even start to move ourselves in a way, in any kind of a progressive way. So
yeah, and for me, I'm pretty good at starting. I'm pretty terrible at staying the course.
Sounds familiar.
So yeah, it was a lot of undermining the accomplishment, means that you're less motivated to continue doing the things that you need to be doing to keep yourself along that path. So yeah.
I'm gonna read the chat real quick, then I'm gonna respond to that. So Thrifter says, you isolated for 2 years and no one noticed. Feel you there. I think that was said in a kind of a wry kind of, man, I kind of an I get it kind of way. So I think that's what Drifter meant. Had a few deaths and other bad things happen in late 2019. Locked myself away for a long time, but no one noticed during COVID. Okay, yeah. COVID was hard for so many different reasons, and for so many of us. I love you, baby, so much. Sorry, my wife just came in to say goodnight. It exacerbated so many issues that were already right there for so many people. I got incredibly lucky because right before COVID hit, I decided that I was going to become sober. if I had not, I think that the only thing that kept me from committing suicide that night was the fact that I knew it would have been my oldest son that would have found me. And if I had gone into COVID being still a raging alcoholic, I think that the stress would have mounted. My wife would have left me, and I would have ended up dead within the next 6 years, or 6 months. Excuse me, not 6 years. Next 6 months. So totally understand that. So one, any purposeful weight loss, because it's something that I struggled with my entire life up until a few years ago, and I still have body dysmorphia because of it. Like I will 1 minute look at myself in the mirror and go, yes, absolutely, you worked for that. And then the next fucking morning, I'll step on the scale. The scale won't read what I think it should, and I'll be like, you fat fuck, what the hell happened in the last day and a half where you gained a quarter of a pound? Now, realize how that sounds to an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. That could literally just be I didn't pee as much. And yet I'm still willing to put myself through mental fucking torture because my expectation and my reality didn't line up in a kind of an unhealthy way that I wanted it to. So any kind of purposeful weight loss, I think, is an absolute fucking it's an amazing accomplishment. So please, and you don't we're not close. This is the first time I've heard your voice. You have a great voice, by the way. I don't know if anybody has ever told you that. You have a great speaking voice.
I get it once in a while.
Yeah, great speaking voice, man. But the fact that you put your mind to losing that weight, and you did, and that is a huge number, even if it doesn't feel like it's big enough, you still set your mind to something and worked through it to an extent that most people will never have to suffer through. Because that is privation. That's hard work. It's hard work to not eat the pizza. Like, it's fucking hard work.
Here's the problem too, because and it speaks so much to my all or nothing addict brain. I did that, and this is not to get into this whole thing. I did a lot of that through fasting.
Sure.
And there is nothing. Talk about privation. It's oh yeah, I'm just not gonna eat today, or I'm not gonna eat for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And that led to a whole. But I don't do that anymore because it led to a binge bust cycle for me. It obviously worked because I got about 99 pounds. But yeah, man, that was its own vicious system to live through.
Funny fucking story. That you just reminded me of something that one of the other content creators that I've had a little bit of contact with, he put out a tweet just recently that said intermittent fasting is kissing cousins with an eating disorder, and I was like, you know what, that fucking slaps. That really does slap. I totally get that. So yeah, it's
well, the problem is that I think, man, because once again I went down this fasting rabbit hole. I think there's so much that's really good about fasting, especially in a really moderate sense. But yes, the function of it is the same mechanism as any other eating disorder.
Yeah.
So it's more hey, if you're prone to eating disorders or dysregulated eating in general, or just maybe not in the best mental health space, maybe don't do a thing that is literally a eating disorder.
Yeah. I would agree.
But I don't want to shit especially, man, because I know people that have had a lot of sustained success with fasting. Mm-hmm. So I don't shit on it as a method in and of itself. I shit on it as a method for me.
Sure.
So yeah.
Sure.
Just my little caveat in there.
I like the caveat, man. I used it for a little while. I initially started out doing calorie counting, and then I did a little bit of intermittent fasting, and then went back to calorie counting. And what I found for in terms of weight loss is that, provided that you're creating a caloric deficit, which you can do by timing your meals. If you have a 6-hour eating window and you go to town on 1,200-1,300 calories at the beginning of your eating window, it can often be difficult to get down another 1,000 calories at the end of your eating window. And depending on where your maintenance calories are, that might put you in enough of a deficit that if you're doing things like going for a half an hour walk during the day, that's enough to give you a sustainable 1 to 2 pound weight loss per week. That's possible.
Sure.
That's absolutely possible. So
I mean,
think
it's funny because like some people do like 16-8, like where literally it's just like, I don't eat. Basically, I eliminated late night snacks. Like that's what I did. But for some people, that's sufficient, right? Like if you are consistently eliminating 200, 300, 400 calories a day because of like your snacking habit, and you call that intermittent fasting, good on you, man. Like whatever. So
we tend our own gardens, man. We tend our own gardens.
For sure.
Enrique G. Henry, my sweet otter. I did that during COVID. I self-prescribed anti-diabetic drugs so I could prolong fasting for 48 plus hours. Yeah. There's an anti-diabetic drug called semaglutide that is apparently all the rage nowadays. That can help with that. Honestly, I think that if you have a food addiction and you're trying to come down from that, semaglutide with therapy could actually be a medically assisted way to go through a weight loss regimen. I actually think that might actually be an interesting way to think about things. Drifter Thrifter says fasting isn't bad, it's how you break the fast that's key. I think that the how you break the fast, I think that there's a certain amount of value that you can get by breaking the fast in a like specifically more clean eating way. Like if I go through a fast and I'm eating, pizza and donuts the minute that the timer goes off, that's not going to be as good for me as if I'm, coming off into fruit, oatmeal, and, eggs and egg whites. That's going to be a better way to come off of a fast. I don't know if it's more than like a 10 or 15% change, provided that you are creating a caloric deficit, which is a big part of any kind of weight loss. And that doesn't necessarily take into account the insulinergic effects of fasting. That can be a boost as well. If you're trying to maximize, then how you come off of a fast, I think is really important. But a lot of the time, the advice that I give for anybody trying to make any kind of a change in the way that they're living towards something that's a little bit healthier is to try to approach things in ways that are manageable. Usually that means making small drops in a bucket of larger, eventual systemic changes. When I first started, wanting to lose weight, I didn't run into the gym and start doing 2-a-days. I didn't go from a 3,000 calorie a day diet to a 1,200 calorie a day diet. I eased my way into it. I said, listen, I'm going to make one change, and that change is going to be counting my calories. For the first week, I counted my calories. I ate exactly what I was going to eat, but I counted it. When I saw how much I was eating and saw what I should be eating, where my normal height, weight range for caloric intake should be, suddenly I saw that there was a big, gigantic, incongruity there, and moving myself further towards where I was going to be in a caloric deficit was something that, after tracking for a week, I could start changing the way that breakfast went. And then the next week, changing how breakfast and lunch went. And the week after that, changing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Creating small changes that you can make habits, and then starting to engage with further small changes on top of those that you've already habitualized. That's how long-term change is made. That's how sustainable long-term change is made, I think. So, thanks for the comment. That's a good one. Yeah. So how do you engage with cannabis now? Would be my next question.
Yeah, so that, I feel like I'm at the end of that story.
Gotcha.
The basic gist of that, which I think in some ways this kind of shows that in many ways I just switched my drug of choice from alcohol to cannabis. But it's led to kind of an interesting situation where so for most of that time where I started smoking. I'm trying to remember if I started smoking before or after I had my experience with naltrexone. I honestly don't remember, but it was right around the same time that I started using it regularly. And I used cannabis most days in probably like a 3-year period. Like I wouldn't say every day, I would say most days.
Okay.
So yeah, more than 4 times a week, as like just a way to like come down in the evenings. That was like the best version of it, and then there was definitely some abuses in there too.
Gotcha.
Which is also why I wouldn't say that I'm sober, because even with alcohol, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I haven't abused alcohol between this like period.
Gotcha. Okay.
But just nowhere near the scale of what it was before.
Okay.
And now I'm at the point where I've plateaued like substantially with cannabis, so it kind of doesn't do anything for me. And I'm on my like second. I had a kind of a tolerance break for about 45 days, about a month ago, and that hasn't seemed to really do it. I'm working on like a 90-day tolerance break now, so I kind of basically like physiologically weaned myself off of cannabis. And so in some ways right now, and that's why it was hard for me to answer your question about where I was.
Sure.
Because I don't feel as I have so many more tools now than I did in 2019. But I am getting this similar feeling of, oh, there was this thing that I could go to reliably to like take the edge off and like make the day not so terrible. And now that thing isn't there anymore. Gotcha. All of a sudden, I don't have this easy remedy. Gotcha. So yeah, and it's a lot of like me having to do the work of like, yeah, you gotta learn to like sit in those emotions. And you gotta like, I'm very good at intellectualizing my emotions, so I can tell you exactly why I feel the things that I do, but I'm terrified of actually feeling those things.
Right.
So yeah, the past month has been, I guess the past couple months has been, me kind of navigating through that, while at the same time starting a new job, going into a very intensive period at work. And so it's also a uniquely stressful time in my life. So yeah, that's been a very difficult combination. So yeah, I once again, I'm so happy that I've come as far as I have, but at this particular moment, definitely feels like a very daunting process.
Sure.
To navigate through. So yeah.
Okay. So next question: are you seeing a therapist?
Not yeah. It's always hard. Okay. Basically, the person that I see is not a licensed therapist. I have been in and out of therapy for many, many years.
Okay.
I stopped seeing my last therapist because they retired, and then I couldn't find one that I fit with. I got hooked up with this program, and I've been working with that, non-licensed program for about 2 years now. And it's not therapy, but it's someone to talk to, and I find it very helpful. So.
Okay. Without knowing the nature of that relationship, I'm not sure where to go with the question for that. What do you get out of that relationship, I guess, would be the appropriate question to ask. What are you getting out of that relationship?
Sure. And I honestly, maybe this is like a whole other, because it's interesting, because I said to you that I came in contact with you through Not So Erudite.
Yeah.
And this is a different connection. I'm not sure if you're aware of the other connections that Erudite has, but so Dr. K and his healthy and his Healthy Gamer group.
So Healthy Gamer,
is the group that I use. I've done physical group coaching with them, and now I do individual coaching. So their focus is a lot on in some ways it reflects the therapeutic relationship, in that it's a lot about reflecting what you're saying back to you. So it's like, hey, in many ways, they're just like a reflective vessel, which is like, okay, tell me about what you're experiencing. Tell me about your day. I'm going to say that back to you, and let's see how you feel about that. Let's see if there's any dissonance between what you're feeling and the way that you talk about the way that you're feeling.
Gotcha.
And that's why, once again, it's not therapy. It's that kind of like, they call it coaching, in that you learn to be more, self-aware and like, aware of what you're thinking and feeling and the nature of those things. But yeah, the person's not a licensed therapist, and that you can definitely see that. You can definitely see, areas in which, because I've had so many therapeutic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I know where a therapist would go with some of this stuff, and their role is so much more specific of like, we're just here to be the mirror. But I've seen that person for like a year and a half now. I think we have a really good relationship, and I would definitely be seeing a therapist if I found one that was like, financially made sense, and that also was available, and on all that stuff. But the last couple times that I've gone to see, looking for a therapist, not been like, while I was seeing the person I'm seeing now through Healthy Gamer, I did say like, hey, I think I need to like, we've done a lot of good work, but I think I need to like go back to traditional therapy. And I did like the whole BetterHelp thing, and that was like a nightmare. The 3 different people that I saw there were all crazy people. Not a lot of people in my local area that are available, and that are accepting new clients. So at least for the time being, this is just, probably in another couple months, I'll start looking for a therapist again. So
okay. Well, so one, I think that I think one of the important parts of having a therapist is the mirror.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, gigantic part. I think that while might not be formal therapy, I think that having somebody speak back to you what you're telling them so that you can hear it, I think that there is something therapeutic to that. So I think that's definitely a very good thing. So I would totally thumbs up on that. Have you thought about asking Not So Erudite for help?
Oh, as far as like her psychometrician.
Well, she's I don't know if it's valuable or viable, but one of the things that she talks about doing is helping people find therapy.
Okay, so this is my ignorance of like never really going into that, understanding that business. I thought that she did that primarily with Canadian patients and within the Canadian system, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
It's possible. I don't know very much about it, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, that's why I never thought about reaching out to her, because I honestly have never looked into it. It's not a bad idea.
You know what, that might be. That's a good question. I might see. Every time she does a live stream call in, I always pay like the $6 to get into like the tier 1, so that I can bug her and ask her questions. I mean, that's how you found me, right? Not so. I'm just writing it down so I don't freaking forget it, because my mind is like a sieve, and for some reason all the important parts are water. Not So Erudites. Therapy recommendations south of the border. US. Okay. Real quick. Drifter Thrifter. I'm working on my health and weight one step at a time, having twins on the way very soon, and at 46 I need to be around for as long as I can. I'm in a small town, did 3 therapy sessions, and then the next available appointment was 2 months away. I flipped out and never went back. That doesn't work for anyone. Yeah, not being able to. So the problem with therapy is interviewing and trying to find a therapist is an ongoing process that unfortunately you have to pay for while you're doing it. So I got very lucky. I got matched with 3 therapists very early into, actually about a year into my sobriety, and one of the 3 I started speaking with, and then the other 2 I didn't match very well with. The third one, though, he and I jived very, very well, got my sense of humor, allowed me to be funny without allowing me to deflect. And then also, I felt very, very at ease with very, very quickly. So I got pretty lucky with that. And unfortunately, my insurance changed and I'm no longer able to go to that guy. So I feel you with the having to try to interview another therapist when I know that the next time it's going to be a little bit harder to try to find somebody. So I totally understand that. I think that the question to try to find some help finding a therapist would be a good question to ask. I don't know what she would charge or what her rates are or anything like that. But I think it's worth an ask, and I think that I'm gonna see about asking her that. My own damn self. So yeah. So I like. It sounds to me like you've got a lot of stuff going on. Do you have methods for coping with stress outside of a substance?
I think I have. There are a lot of tools that I have. I just don't find any of them to be particularly. They are good in an aggregate. So like, and it's all the same boring stuff. Like, I don't have to be eating super clean, but when I'm avoiding like really terrible food, I feel better, and I feel better equipped to like handle the day.
Mm-hmm.
My big thing is sleep. My sleep has always been terrible. So like when I'm getting like a reasonable amount of sleep, like
Mm-hmm.
I feel more like equipped to take on the day. Walking, exercising regularly, having conversations, setting aside time with my friends, like all of the basic self-care things are things that I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in the aggregate, they help, but it's, it obviously none of it is the magic pill the way you want it to
Sure.
be.
Sure.
In the moment, in more acute phases, because I have pretty severe anxiety,
Okay.
and so in those acute phases, like I do once again, because I'm a Dr. K person. I'm into the whole meditation thing and controlled breathing, and it helps. It's okay, but yeah, I haven't found any of it. It's something that I struggle with a lot, which is the reality that almost everything that I struggle with kind of feeds into one another, right? And you kind of mentioned that with the alcohol, like the alcohol is undermining your mental health, and for me, that would also mean like undermining my weight. I was spending so much money on alcohol; it was undermining my finances, my relationships, and so I find it's overwhelming to work on everything all at once. But it seems like that's the only way that you get stability, is by pulling as many levers as you can, to try and like stabilize the ship. So I would say that I have different tools, but tools that at the moment I find somewhat inadequate. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I think that in terms of the, like, when you feel an immediate desire to engage with a substance, one of the things that I like to do is I will distract myself, and that can be a couple of different things. The ways that I like to distract myself the most are some kind of a geeky pursuit, so something that I love doing, something that's hobby related, and something that I will have something that I can show that I did afterwards. So something geeky and productive at the same time. For me, that's hopping onto the stream and potentially chatting with whoever, usually when I have an unscheduled stream, I get, 2-3 people. It's not very much. Like tonight we're sitting on, double-digit viewers, which is really, really uncommon for us. And I'm, eternally grateful. Thank you all very, very much for being here. This has been one of the better streams that we've ever done here, and I'm infinitely grateful, not only for you, the viewer, but also Luminos. I can't thank you enough for hopping on here and being so brutally honest. Like, seriously,
Man.
It's amazing, and I am deeply thankful. So hopping on a stream and chatting with somebody, whoever's here, anybody at all. The other thing that I like to do is I put together and paint models. Putting together and painting models, and for me specifically, I'm a big 40K guy. I love 40K. I've got Space Marines, I've got Tyranids, I've got so many fucking models that all need to be gone through, right? So my plastic pile of shame is enough to keep me sober for years and years and years if only I continue
Dude,
to have the cravings
stop this
towards
pile
that
of
area.
shame stuff.
Pile
like,
of shame. Pile of shame.
No. Henry Cavill is like single-handedly making 40K like sexy again. Like he's like
He
single-handedly
looks
being
like the fucking emperor. Yeah, of course he is. He does. He looks like the fucking emperor of mankind. Like, I would
I just
follow
think
him
it's so
into
funny.
chaos.
He just literally is like, yeah, I'm super rich and super attractive. Yeah, I do 40K. What do you want? And
Yeah,
it's
what do you want
very
about it?
funny to me.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
really cool.
he's not even like shining anybody on with it. He's just like, oh yeah, I'd love to talk. Like, he just fucking geeks out, and it's magical. It's absolutely magical. So I engage with a geeky hobby, and then make sure that I've got something to show for it. So with the streaming, I'll hop into a video game, I'll chat with somebody that's here, I'll give an update on what's going on in my life and why I'm having a craving and why I'm struggling, and then later I've got the VOD that I can look at, and if I want to throw something from that up on YouTube, there's something productive. So I find that the combination of hobby and a productive thing gives me enough distance from my wanting to have my substance of choice, while also giving me something tangible that I've got that I can hold on to at the end of that process. It also forces me to pay attention to whatever it is that I'm doing, to almost the exclusion of just about anything else. So I don't know if you've got anything like that in your life, but that might be something to consider. And like I said, everybody tends their own garden. So whatever it is that you need defined for that, all I can do is tell you what works for me. And anybody else that's in the community can, rattle off things that work for them, and you can take it or leave it, however you decide to. But it sounds to me like you recognize that you would like to be a little bit further along your journey than you are right now. And one of the things that I think that people like cannabis so much for is it makes us feel happy when we're not doing anything that moves us in the direction that if we were not smoking out, we would say we want to be working towards.
Sure.
Does that kind of ring true?
Well, I mean, you're literally describing, you're right, like the cannabis's relationship to dopamine.
Yeah.
And dopamine is like our primary motivation neurochemical, right? So it's giving you the satisfying feeling without the pursuit of that satisfying thing.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I also, I think this wraps into what you were saying about a hobby, and that this is my struggle is there's so many other things in my life that are destabilizing, and depression is so much a part of this. But like lack of interest, in my hobbies is unfortunate, and a lot of anhedonia is like a part of my experience. But I will say the thing that I've been doing recently, because it goes a long way to being more active as opposed to passive in your mindset, and is engaging an old thing, is I started reading again.
Okay.
And it couldn't be something big. Like, I'm the kind of person, one of my nerdy passions is like obsessing over like information. Like I don't even know if there's a name for it.
I wouldn't
like
know.
the way that ADHD people and autistic people get like hyper fixated on things. Like that's how I am about like current events. Like I'm just going to study I'm going to study the last 100 years of like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict just because that's fun for me.
Gotcha.
But that's so heavy and it's so information like based. That's not the kind of reading that I needed to be doing. I needed to be just like, I'm going to literally pick up like a romance novel, or I'm going to pick up like a silly, fun little story, because I need something that is easy to access, but that is still like active and being involved. Because my definite talk about like the not pursuing things you want to be pursuing. Like when I smoke, usually what I'm doing is I'm just sitting at this same chair that I'm talking to you in, and I'm watching Twitch. Like that's how I started. I saw you on Not So Erudite because I just watch Erudite, and I watch Destiny, and I watch. That's just like a part of my life, is this kind of passive participation in things. And that's
a dopamine hit in and of itself. Are you kidding me? I can't wait to hear what Big D is going to say about the Max thing. Like, I feel like I'm watching. I understand soap operas now.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, the worst part of streaming is that it's, for me at least, it's not this big hit of dopamine. It's actually the IV. It's the slow little drip of like, oh no, you could watch this. That was kind of a fun, interesting thing that happened there. Yeah. I bet if you keep on watching, one of those fun, interesting things is going to happen
again. Yeah.
So
that's how they get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of like, that is a frustration that I have with the format, but I'm also, kind of trying to build a community using that format as well. So it's like, I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, one, I understand I'll be honest, the reason that I wanted to like look into your community is because of the way that you talked about things on Erudite Stream, which was incredibly focused on the needs of your community, but also like really like focused on what the ethical and practical like boundaries needed to be. And so you considering like whether or not this this platform obviously has its issues, but you want to use a platform for good. One, the fact that you're aware of that is really cool and that you engage with that. But yeah, I mean, so many of these things are just tools, right? Like, it's about what you use them for, and it's about the manner that you use them in. So yeah, I completely understand having that reservation, but I think from everything that I've seen, you're doing it the right way. So
thanks, man.
Yeah,
thanks. I mean, it's easy when the community is small and the potential for selling out is minimal. Like, there's nobody here that's like, they drop subs so that they don't have to watch the ads. And we're dual streaming to YouTube. If you don't want to watch the ads, you don't have to. You can go to YouTube and they don't have ads during a live stream. Not at all. But I do have ethical concerns about monetizing something so incredibly important to people's well-being, and especially to the message, because like, I'm not doing this wholly out of the goodness of my heart. I'm doing this because this is how I perceive, like you said you've done AA, that service is a part of AA. This is my version of that. This is me keeping myself sober while hopefully providing a service to other people to help them keep sober, and to, in some way, shape, or form, create this kind of self-fulfilling loop of, I'm helping people be sober who are helping me be sober. And it just, this, reciprocal relationship that I think is so deeply vital to anybody that wants to increase the amount of, awareness that they have of their own situation in an effort to get themselves to a place where they're healthier. So yeah. But no, I appreciate that was what stuck out in the questions, because regardless of what she had said in terms of the ethicality or ethicality, is that, I don't even know if that's a fucking word. The ethical nature of what it is that I could potentially abuse in this space. I think that I'm a decent enough human being that, should we grow, if that's something that will happen, if growth is something that will happen, I still want to continue to engage in this like completely open and transparent way. Like, I am trying to figure out a way that I can hire one of the people from my community. Big Bowler's my mod here on Twitch. Trying to figure out a way that I can hire him to start doing the editing for the VODs, and that would just be basically all the money that I would make from like Twitch, which isn't very much on a yearly basis. So trying to figure that stuff out. Yeah, I don't know if that was overshare or not. I don't know. It's another one of those things where like I feel like I'm saying things that sound good and are a little bit virtue signally, even though what I want to get across is that the message is more important than any kind of like monetization or anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that whole yeah, I don't know, your experience might be different than mine, but there are so many things that I am personally afraid to do because they smell or sound like something that I don't like. And I think especially the whole I used to joke about, man, I wish that there was some way that I could monetize my mental health.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
there's so many people that obviously do that. There are so many people that obviously use some version of themselves to, yeah, to make a living.
Yeah.
And I I don't know if I'm even mad at that. I think the part that really becomes like insidious is when you're not genuine about it,
Mhm.
and when you're, yeah, in some way like lying to people or manipulating them to
Sure.
do something that they wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so I mean, I've always, even like the oversharing thing, oversharing ultimately comes back to like you having your own boundaries about what you are comfortable being public. And if you're just comfortable with certain things being public that other people would view as deeply personal, I don't even know if that's oversharing. Like, as long as that's an appropriate boundary for you and for the people that you care about, like, yeah, I don't know.
No.
But yeah, I totally understand that struggle.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna read real quick. Let's see. Otter says that hyper focus is what drove me to study medicine, and now I'm here. Otter's story is interesting. If you check the VOD from last week, you'll learn quite a bit about our good Colombian resident doctor, who I absolutely adore. Drifter Thrifter says, I have so many hobbies that I ignore. Heck, I have an entire private golf course in my backyard and haven't touched it or played in over a year. So, okay, Drifter. What is it that's keeping you from doing that? And do you think that there's a space in your life to try to get back out there for just going to the driving range, just going to the putting range, just going to the chipping range? Half an hour, see how you feel about it. Discipline is a word that I think is... I think that it has some negative connotations to it. I feel like people get frustrated when they hear the word discipline, because they will project onto that word all the feelings that they have when they lack the motivation to do something. Well, motivation and discipline are two very different things that feed into each other. Motivation comes after a burst of inspiration. You get a burst of inspiration, you're suddenly motivated to do a thing. That is a finite amount of energy that you have to put towards that. Discipline is the thought that you can put effort into something that you're not motivated to do, recognizing that hopefully you'll get to a place where you will once again have that flash of inspiration followed by that motivated energy to continue to force, or not to force you, but to give you that enjoyment of whatever it is that you're pursuing. Like, nobody wakes up every morning going, oh, I'm motivated. Like, for me at the gym, I am motivated at the gym when I do something like, the last time that I was really motivated to go to the gym was after I did a 1-rep max day. So 1-rep max day is where you lift one weight where you lift a series of exercises. You do lifts in a series of exercises, and you're just trying to do one rep as high as you possibly can. So for me, it was, all right, we're going to do some warm-up reps, and then we're going to do 1 rep at 190 pounds. Okay, done. Next rep, 210 pounds. Okay, done. Next rep, 225 pounds. Okay, done. Next rep, 235. Can you get it all the way up? Can you get it all the way up? Yep, all the way up. Okay. Do you think you can keep going? Nope. All right. Your 1 rep max for the bench press was 235 on October, blah, blah, blah. I did one of those back in October. That next month, I was highly motivated to get to the gym because I felt like I had numbers. I was inspired and motivated to continue to move forward in my fitness journey. I was really, really happy about it. About a month later, every fucking day in the gym sucked. It sucked. But I knew that if I just kept going, kept on my program, and was focused on the process, that the next time I did that 1 rep max day, I was going to have higher numbers than I did back in October. So it feeds into itself. The inspiration, motivation, and discipline chain, it feeds back into itself. And that, I think, is a really, really, really important thing to recognize. Discipline is not happy and fun. Discipline is what keeps you going when you lack motivation, but you know the things that you're going to accomplish are worth accomplishing. So, yeah. That's what I got for that. All right.
I actually think that I have to get going. Speaking of having to get proper amounts of sleep and all that good stuff.
Gotcha. Are you East Coast?
I am East Coast.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you for the opportunity, and hope we get to talk some other time.
I can't thank you enough. Listen, the Discord for the stream after I do my check-in and the David Blowy is always open. If I'm gaming, if I'm doing anything, if you're in the community, if you're on the server and you have something you want to talk about, you hop in. We're small enough that this happens 1 out of every 3 or 4. If we get bigger, we might have to re-examine that. But for right now, if you've got something you ever want to talk about, you just want to, bullshit at me, you want to talk about a game, you want to talk about a piece of history that you learned about, I love that shit. You are more than welcome to hop into the voice chat. Just send me a DM beforehand, and we'll absolutely set it up. This is not a formal space. This is basically, as close to an AA meeting as I can make it while there's only one camera on. You got me?
Yeah, I got you, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so fucking much. I'm not kidding. I would give you the biggest goddamn hug right now if we were in person. The fact that you were willing to come in, talk to me, and then not only talk about what we originally had planned to, but we're going to be so open with what's going on in your life, especially in front of the 8 strangers that you did it in front of. I can't thank you enough for that. I'm not kidding. I'm absolutely 100% serious about that. Your weight loss, the 95 pounds, that's a hell of a fucking achievement. That's more than my 9-year-old weighs. All right?
Yeah.
Take that and hold that in your fucking heart like Gollum in the One Goddamn Ring, because it's beautiful and it's good, and it's something that you can build off of if you want to.
Yep, I appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
Right. Bye.
Holy fucking shit, that was great. That was so good. I cannot tell you how much that absolutely filled my cup. This is a moment of inspiration, followed by me being motivated tomorrow to do more stuff to make this a better community. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about with that. Look at my hands. Look at them. Fucking tiger clawing. I'm so excited about this. All right. Drifter Thrifter. A lot of negativity attached to the sport now. It's frisbee golf. I own a mountain and it's 27 holes around the mountain. During lockdown, my entire friend group based around the sport abandoned me, so I only have bad memories with it now. I need to find the enjoyment solo, which is hard. I don't know where you live. I don't know where you're at in the world. I know that good friend of the show and community member Tweezus is a huge fan of disc golf. I know that Mod of the Twitch server, Twitch stream, and friend of the show Big Bowler is a huge fan of disc golf. I'm pretty sure Kopi's a big fan of disc golf as well. We've got members of this community that are all about that. So if you do go out and you want to share some of your stories, you go out tomorrow and you want to share how you shot a specific amount on a specific hole, Outback Australia. Holy shit. Well, cheers. Thanks for God, the internet is fucking amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. So yes, you absolutely can share that with us. I've got a link to the Discord server there. I won't say that we're always watching, but usually within about an hour of you posting something up in the Discord, we'll have somebody responding to you somehow, some way. We have, not a huge community, but enough of one so that if you want to share something, you're always welcome to come into the Discord. Share by text, share by voice, any of the above, man. Any of the above whatsoever. Now, it's been 2 hours. That's how good the fucking conversation was. It's been 2 hours. I got to do my David Blowy. You guys know what time it is. It's time for me to blow the robot penis and have it squeal at me. This is our breathalyzer test. And tonight's blowy, we blew zeros. Anybody surprised? Nobody should be surprised. It's been like a thing. It's been how many days in a row? So many days in a row that we've done that. All right, I'm gonna go hit the head, and then after I hit the head, we're gonna hit some PlayStation 4 Diablo 4, and I think my oldest son might be joining us. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun? All right, I'll be right back. You guys enjoy the tunes. You know what we should do? I feel like let's do. See if we can find something to watch really, really quickly. What's gonna be good? Here, check out a Necromancer build.
In this Diablo 4 build video, I'm going to be showing you my Corpse Explosion Necromancer build. This is an insanely high DPS build. I haven't seen anything quite like this. It takes advantage of a couple legendary aspects.
So this is Fextra-Life. Fextra-Life does gaming videos and guides. I'm gonna go hit the head and pee.
In this Diablo 4 build video, I'm going to be
right
showing
back.
my Corpse Explosion Necromancer build. This is an insanely high DPS build. I haven't seen anything quite like this. It takes advantage of a couple legendary aspects to make a deadly combination. There are probably many versions of this build floating out there, but in this video, I want to show you my take on it and what I've found to work best. So this particular build takes advantage of the aspect of Explosive Mist, which makes it so that your Blood Mist skill will actually trigger Corpse Explosion of corpses around you within a certain radius of you very, very quickly. And this triggers chain reactions of more corpses as enemies die to these explosions, and you don't have to sit there and spam R2, R2, or whatever button it is that you have Corpse Explosion mapped to. You don't even have Corpse Explosion slotted in order to have this happen. And it can be extremely deadly as you rip through packs of enemies, triggering explosion after explosion. Not unlike the Shadow Archer build, where you use the Shadow Imbuement with something like Penetrating Shot. Now, until you get this aspect, you won't be able to take advantage of this combination of things, but you'll still be able to use Corpse Explosion very deadly, and the upgrades from Corpse Explosion actually apply to the Corpse Explosions that happen from this item, so having Corpse Explosion upgraded anyway is actually very good for this build. So for my basic skill, I chose Reap, and that's because one of the final upgrades of it allows it so that when you strike an enemy, it'll drop a corpse instantly. You don't have to kill that enemy, and that's a great way to get an extra corpse before you run into, leading up with Blood Mist. And it's also a melee range ability, which is great because if you're going to use Blood Mist to trigger corpses, you're going to have to be on top of the enemies anyway. Now, it's not super important which basic skill you use, because once you get far enough along in this build, you're not going to be using your basic skill hardly ever at all. But if you're talking about, as you're making this build, Reap is a good one to begin with. And for my core skill, I took Bone Spear. What I really like about Bone Spear is that it penetrates the first target, goes through and hits multiple enemies, and it applies vulnerable very, very easily. So you can deal with very hard to kill enemies easily, and you're going to be able to kill lots of enemies on the screen. And usually what will happen later on in your build is you'll fire a Bone Spear to begin with instead of using your basic attack. You'll kill a couple enemies, and then you'll run in, and you'll use your Blood Mist to trigger the Corpse Explosions with that special legendary aspect. And another reason that I chose Bone Spear specifically is I ended up with a very good legendary aspect, the Splintering aspect, which basically makes it so that Bone Spear's primary attack makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds beyond the first target. So not only once you have an upgrade will it be the first target, but it'll also be enemies behind it, and it also makes it so the shards deal additional damage to vulnerable enemies. And go through them, hitting more enemies. So this just makes your Bone Spear even more effective, and it was a reason why I chose this, but you could go with any of the core abilities. It doesn't have to be this one. So then this brings us to Blood Mist, of course. This is one of the primary skills we're using for this build, and this is what you're going to trigger the Corpse Explosion chain with. I only have one basic point here in it. I have an extra point from a piece of gear randomly. But otherwise, I've taken the upgrades in it in order to get the one that allows you to drop a corpse every second while using this. This will make sure you get at least 3 corpses when using it, and if you hit with Reap first, then it'll be 4 corpses. So that gives you at least 4 explosions, which is great. And it's just a really good synergy right there. You don't really need to upgrade this ability. It's kind of a one-point wonder other than getting that last upgrade. And something really great about this ability as well is that it makes you immune during this time. And that's going to allow you to move around and not take any damage while you're in this form. You won't be able to do anything else, but at least you're not going to take any damage while enemies are exploding. And also, we obviously have Corpse Explosion maxed out here. This is going to make it so each explosion does max possible damage. So you want to make sure you do that. So I want to mention one specific passive here that's very, very important for this build, and you're going to want to make sure that you pick it up very, very quickly, which is Grim Harvest. This makes it so that when you consume a corpse, for each point spent, you gain 3 essence. So at max rank, you're going to gain 9 essence per corpse consumed. You consume a corpse when you raise a skeleton out of it, or when you use corpse explosion or something like that. So when you go through your chain reaction of corpses or whatever, you're going to refill your essence very, very quickly. And what this allows you to do is juggle back and forth between spamming your bone spear, which is going to consume a lot of essence because it's very expensive, and then you're going to go through all that essence, and then you're going to cast Blood Mist in order to trigger the chain reaction of explosions. That's going to replenish all of your essence, and then you can go back into spamming your bone spear again, and then when you run low again, you can go into Blood Mist and then replenish your essence, and that's just kind of alternating between those, and it keeps your damage very, very high the whole time. Fueled by Death is also excellent because this is going to increase your damage by 4% for 4 seconds per point spent after you consume a corpse. This is going to max out at 12%. This is very, very good. We don't have enough points here for this build, but if you took this build further, at the full game, launch of the game, you would have this maxed out. Another really good passive here is Necrotic Carapace. What this does is that when a corpse is formed from either your skills, like when you kill an enemy with one of your skills or when your minions kills one, you're going to gain Fortify for 2% of your base health per corpse. So at 3 points, this is 6%. You need to reach your full max HP before this kicks in. So you'd have to kill at 6%, you'd have to kill, 12 or something? I don't know what the math is, 15, 16 enemies before you get advantage, something like that, 17 enemies, roughly, before this kicks in. And once it does, you're going to have a damage reduction, and half the damage you take is going to be pulled from that Fortify pool instead of your actual HP pool. So it sort of protects you for a while, but you need to build it up very quickly. So this skill, you either want to go all the way in on it, if you can, if you have the points, or you shouldn't take it. Because you need to be able to kill enemies very, very quickly in order to build it up very, very fast. We do with this build, so it's good to take. Our other 2 spots are occupied by Raised Skeleton and Golem. This allows you to have summon skeletons out and also have your Golem out. Your Golem is very good at tanking. If you use the active ability of the Golem once out, it'll taunt enemies around it, keeping them off you. You don't really need to do this ever with this build, but just in case you're playing a summoner build, that's a good thing to know. You can also use the Raised Skeleton ability when the skeletons are out also to buff your skeletons for increased attack speed and also heal them a little bit. So know that you can do that periodically with that skill also, but it's not something you really need to do with this build. In terms of Book of the Dead, I have Reapers selected, and there's actually an option here that allows it so that when they attack, they have a chance to spawn a corpse. That adds to our corpse pile that then can be detonated, and that's why I keep them here. You don't really need minions for this build, but these ones add a corpse, and the Golem actually has an option there that will allow it to drop a corpse if it takes a big chunk of its health. This is particularly true during boss fights. That'll give you some corpses during boss fights as well. You don't need mages here, so I opted for increased vulnerability damage. Either overpower or vulnerability damage are both good for this build, so make sure you're using one of those. If skeletal mages had an option that would give you corpses in some way, I would have kept them, but they don't, so we don't have that here. So that wraps up our Corpse Explosion Necromancer build. It's extremely deadly build right now. If you're playing a Necromancer and you haven't tried it yet, go out there and try it and see what you can do with it.
Tried for 10 minutes to join the Discord. Unsure what I'm doing wrong. Stuck on the best announcements. Okay, so in the Discord server, there's going to be a I don't know why you're stuck in the best announcements. Drifter Thrifter AU just showed up. Yep, I see you. Under rules, there should be if you can you get to rules? Mr. Drifter Thrifter. There is a post that you need to react to that should give you access to the entirety of the server. So. Oh. Okay, there we go. Wait, no, that's not right.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Oh man, did I mess something up in the settings? John, are you on right now? Give me just a second and see if we can find you.
What are you trying to do?
A couple things. So there's a phone. Let's do Drifter. There, that should give you access. That should give you access. Let's see if that worked.
There we go. The stream.
Well, I just gave you manual. So go ahead and come. Yeah, hey man, how's it going? welcome. Can you see like all of the like general podcast stream, sobriety, selfies?
I see this as well.
Well, so I'm helping you get in. I'm also helping somebody else get in.
Oh,
at the
okay,
same time.
okay.
Yeah, okay. So you're
talking to somebody else.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So you've got a full list. So here. This is where you're gonna go. You're gonna go down here to the stream, and join voice.
Okay.
And now you're in there.
Indeed. All right,
Okay. Everybody can hear you now, though. Okay. All right, buddy.
okay.
All there now. Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, there's supposed to be a landing pad that you're supposed to get to, and then all you got to do is just react to something, and it should pop. It should give you the role of visitor, and then pop you down into. So I think I got to talk to John, one of our moderators on there about making that a little bit more streamlined, because that could be problematic. Now I'm like, is there anybody else that like has been waiting to get in? Avenged Sophie Fold got in. Okay. GP got in. Okay. Asher Angel got in. Wall X is... I just let him in. All right. So, all right. There we go. All right. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Technical issue. We're trying to streamline a few things on the Discord server, and yeah. Alrighty.
Go.
Hi, buddy.
Well, I just finished up stuff.
You just
that I
finished
needed
stuff?
to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, my freaking... Did my stream go fucking...
Wait,
Did my stream go south? My stream froze for some freaking reason.
I would hold on. Wait a second.
What's up, buddy?
Wait. So you're streaming right now, right?
I am streaming right now.
Okay.
What's up, buddy?
That's just my question. I'm thinking logistically
Okay.
of things.
Like what? What's in your brain, buddy?
Like, should I like maybe pull up something so I could see chat, or like, are you gonna tell it what any of the chat says to me, ask me, or something like that?
I can. You can also watch the stream on an iPad if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think I'll go do that.
Can
Let
you
me
guys
go
hear
grab.
me at all? Can the stream hear me at all? Yeah, I think my freaking stream went down.
No.
I can't believe this is freaking
Smell
true.
cat.
Just remember, Brennan, everything you're saying going straight through. All right, I think I got to restart the stream. I think I got to freaking restart I'm so frustrated by this. Like, hello?
Thing on the screen. The screen's black.
Yeah. How's it going, man? How are you, Drifter?
I'm all right. Yeah, just I thought I could hear you talking, so I was like, oh well, there's the join voice thing there, so I'll give it a crack.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah. For some reason, so I have the stream on a Mac, and if I do anything to my setup, like switching from one monitor to another or one device to another, for some reason Stream Elements goes down. So I got to actually restart the stream real quick. So yeah, got to do that, unfortunately. So
Okay.
be right back on the stream.